the campus of High Point University. This is Q Sports Update.
Hello and welcome. It's time for Q It Up. I'm your host, Wendell Epps, and today I am joined by Ben Membrino, along with longtime sports writer of the Boston Globe and HPU sports reporter in residence, Bob Ryan. Mr. Ryan, pleasure to have you here. Ben, always great to be with you as well. So today we're just going to talk about good old-fashioned sports. First thing, let's talk about Tom Brady. Tom Brady originally retired. We thought his career was done, obviously considered to be the GOAT of the NFL. But a few weeks later, made the decision that he wanted to come back, play another season. What are your initial reactions to that?
I can't say that I called it, but along with many others, I am not remotely surprised. You have to understand his MO. He drops clues. If you recall when he left Patriots, that we harken back to an interview he had given Jim Gray a couple of years prior, during which he was asked if he felt sufficiently appreciated by the New England Patriots. His cryptic response was, "I plead the fifth." I think that was a warning shot right there. Now, if you recall, when he said he was no longer going to play and did so by issuing this lengthy Instagram, nowhere did the word retirement or any derivative of the word retirement appear in that lengthy discourse. He alluded to it maybe by stepping away or this and that. He never said retirement. And it just felt funny, and so I wasn't shocked at all when he came back.
And Ben, for you as I know Patriots fan, Tom Brady going to Tampa, but what were your thoughts on the whole process and chaos that happened with him?
Yeah, I have to agree with Mr. Ryan here. It didn't shock me when it came out. I mean, you have to look at the statements he was making even before. Like, during his retirement, he was talking about, I still love the game. He told Jim Gray on his weekly show, let's go, never say never when talking about his retirement. So when eventually, I think it happened very quickly and only 2 months after the fact. That didn't surprise me. What did surprise me was how he decided to go back to Tampa. I thought, I'd heard some things about he wasn't exactly thrilled with Bruce Arians. They had a bit of a rocky relationship in year two. Obviously, winning in the Super Bowl in year one helped smooth things out. I thought he would have looked at some other scenarios. San Francisco was very enlightening to me just because hometown. I mean, their QB situation is a little fuzzy. Obviously, they drafted Trey Lance. They had Jimmy G, but it sounds like Jimmy G is on his way out. It felt like that would have been a good mutual fit where, obviously, NFC Championship run. Brady comes in, could kind of, still be the man, be the mentor here, but also, kind of show Trey Lance the ropes and get him undergoing. But it is interesting. I think it's still, Tampa's in a great spot now, obviously. They had a pretty good offseason, brought back just about everybody. I mean, Chris Godwin's back. He's going to be healthy. Mike Evans is going to be back. Gronk is still up in the air, but I can't imagine Gronk playing for another QB other than Tom Brady. He's even said it himself. I mean, they brought in Russell Gage. They got Shaq Mason to refortify that offensive line. So I think Tampa is going to be in a good spot for him. I was surprised that he didn't, try to – I know he was under contract, but I am surprised he didn't try to, maybe force his way back home to San Francisco, maybe Indy or something. But it's not football season without Tom Brady. So
at the conclusion of the season, one of the things people thought about that might have contributed to the cessation of play was the uncertainty of the roster of the Buccaneers with all those impending free agents. Now they have rectified some of that situation, true, but that was one of the questions. And he says, okay, makes sense. He knew it won't be the same team. It's not going to be as good. He may not be protected as well, and the whole thing. So now they have addressed that. I certainly was one of the ones who am more surprised that he's coming back to Tampa Bay rather than that he was going to finish the circle of life at San Francisco. He's from Northern California. He famously was present in the stadium for the catch by Dwight Clark. He grew up as a 49ers fan. And it would have been, and as Brady has created this fictional life story, more or less, this would have been a wonderful chapter ending for him had he done so. So that wouldn't have surprised me at all. So I am mildly surprised that he is staying in Tampa Bay.
I think you also have to consider his numbers. He put up one of his best statistical seasons last year.
He didn't quit because he couldn't play any longer. I mean, he didn't say he wouldn't come back because he couldn't play any longer. But because we'll never know the truth about whatever the depth of the problem was with the spat with Arians, excuse me. But it's been obviously smoothed over.
Yeah. Would have been interesting to see him go to the 49ers. Joe Montana, Steve Young, of course, played there. Tom Brady would have been interesting. But, how long do we actually think Tom Brady's going to play? When is he actually going to retire?
Well, that's one other thing. If he had followed through with the retirement, he would not have played at age 45, which he said was his goal. On the 3rd of August, I believe it is, he turns 45. He will play the season or start the season at 45, as he always said. That was as he long ago said would be a goal.
Yeah, I think you also have to remember the famous quote, I'll retire when I suck.
Right, and he's certainly far from that.
He doesn't suck yet.
Even a fill in the blank, 10% deterioration, 15, even a 20% deterioration is still a quarterback that can win in the National Football League.
Yeah, again, he has a passion for the game that not a lot of other, especially in football, where the lifespan of a football player is not as long as basketball, baseball, other sports. So I think I wouldn't be surprised if he plays for another 2 or 3 years. Now, maybe it's not with Tampa, but I wouldn't be surprised if he sticks it out.
I think we should have learned by now, but be prepared for anything with Tom, on or off the field.
Yeah. Most certainly. Anything can happen. Just got to appreciate the greatness while we have it.
Yeah.
But let's talk some hoops now. Boston Celtics. Mr. Ryan, I know you're a Boston guy. You covered the Celtics for a long time. Celtics playing extremely well right now. What do you think is going to happen? You think they're realistic championship contenders this year?
I'll try to break it down. I have to back it up, though. At the beginning of the season, they got off to a very tepid start. And they were not beating teams that on paper they should have beaten, and they were. And the second thing was they were blowing leads, and sometimes in the high double-digit leads in the fourth quarter. I said after 5 or 6 games, all right, here's the deal with this team. They're annoying. They're going to annoy us all year. They're going to tease us. There will be some good games, but there are going to be far too many games in which we're going to want to go, send them to their room without their supper kind of thing, And this continued right through early January. I can give you a date because I did the research on this. On the 6th of January, they lost a highly annoying game to the Knicks that put them 18-21 on the season. They are now, since then, 28-7. And now what's happened? Okay. Number one, Jason Tatum is playing to his capability. He is a full skillful player at 6'10", and he can get any shot he wants at any time, and that's one of the problems because that means he thinks he can crank a 3 up from 30 feet with 2 people on him, and occasionally make one of those. But he wasn't making his other teammates better. I'm not sure I love that phrase, but all right, I'll go along with it. He wasn't aiding the others and enhancing the capability of the others the way he could have. Number 2, Jaylen Brown was hurt. He was playing okay. Number 3, Robert Williams, who was the thing has been from day one with him. Can he be on the court? There's always something. There has always been. But when he's on there, he's shown flashes of being a really good rim protector and he's a good pick and roll center alley-oop guy and all that. Okay, but here's the fourth one. Marcus Smart. Now, I've been a member of the Marcus Smart fan club from day one. I don't think there's really and truly anybody like him on the other end of the floor. There may be other people who think they are, but they're not Marcus Smart. He is 6'5". He's aggressive. He's strong. He's fearless and he's reckless. And he brings a certain kind of tenacity that with a certain amount of skill that at that position that I don't think exists anywhere else. There's something special about him. But as an offensive player, he's been spotty. Okay, yeah, he can make a 3, but he takes too many bad 3s. This is what he's done. And I said, and he was recently, 6 weeks ago, I would have said, okay, I love Marcus Smart, but don't try to tell me he's a point guard. He's masquerading as a point guard. Well, guess what? I don't know what's happened. I don't know what has gotten into him. He has acted very much as a point guard during this stretch, this successful stretch, culminating in last night. He had 13 assists in a game in which he attempted 3 shots. If you had told me a week ago, let alone 10 days, a month, or a year, or 2 years, or 5 years ago, that he would ever play a game in which he would have 13 assists while attempting 3 field goals, I would have said, pfft. And if he's going to play like this, and all these things are going to happen, and they'll stay healthy, they're going to be a problem for people. They're going to definitely be a threat.
They definitely are. What do you think, Ben?
Yeah, I have to agree. So they kind of picked it up since the start of the year, and I was kind of worried, after they had won 15 of 18, are they, okay, they're getting hot, are they peaking at the wrong time? Obviously you want to peak toward the playoffs or the back end of the year. Now it's turned into, over the last 2 or 3 weeks, they're just a flat-out good team right now. I mean, their defense, I got to give so much credit to Ime Udoka and Brad Stevens for, the midseason, turnaround they've had. Obviously bringing in Derek White, a defensive-minded guy from San Antonio who has struggled a bit offensively, but defensively has fit the mold perfectly. And it's rarity. You ideally want to have one guy who's going to be in contention for Defensive Player of the Year. They kind of have two guys right now. Obviously, Marcus Smart and then Robert Williams, who has absolutely turned it on right now. Their team defense efficiency is second in the league, just behind Golden State.
They're since in the stretch, they've been number one in both, and their offense has been not fully appreciated, even though they're running up massive point scores. They were up by 30 in the first half last night. They made their first 10 shots. There's one reason why Smart had so many assists, because they were actually making the shots. But and the other thing, Danny, you mentioned Danny, you mentioned Brad at the trading deadline. He swept out some dead wood and brought in White, as you said, who was important, and Daniel Tice, who's not, but he's a nice role auxiliary player, and he fits the system and he fits the circumstance, and he was happy to be back, and he fits into their defensive scheme. He can at 6'8", they switch a lot. He can do that, and he's comfortable there. They're happy with him. And one more guy, and they have basically an 8-man rotation now. Yeah. Peyton Pritchard.
He's
Peyton
phenomenal.
Pritchard, we've been waiting and waiting and waiting. We've seen flashes last year, had a good, but he was not making those shots weren't going in. Suddenly, those 3-pointers are going in, and to the tune of 10 in a row in one stretch recently. And if this is the Peyton Pritchard they're going to get, it's really going to be an asset during the playoffs.
Yeah, I mean, Pritchard never really had that much of a chance to kind of showcase this. Obviously, last year when he was drafted and came in, Kemba Walker was there as the starting
and Aaron
guard.
Nesmith
and Nesmith too. And then this year, obviously, they brought in Schroeder because the mid-level exception. They had room for him. They said we gave it a try. Didn't work out. And now you're kind of seeing what's happening. I think it just goes to show how deep they are right now. I mean, they didn't really have this kind of. It felt like the dynamic duo of Tatum and Brown were going to have to carry them to these wins and drop. And although they're still doing that, it feels like they have a lot more help.
I have to mention two other guys, as long as we're going to parse this team. One is Al Horford, who is playing surprisingly well at 35, and certainly a guy who was deemed unnecessary or irrelevant in Oklahoma City to the point where he patiently, he sat down the second half of the year, didn't play, and he's back and he's doing the Al Horford things, which means a little bit of everything. The right pass before the pass, a good rebound. He's back making his threes better than he's again. And then there's Grant Williams. I always say about Grant Williams, if he were only 6'8", he'd be. Well, he isn't. He's 6'6". He can. They actually play him at the 5 against people. He actually is smart and savvy enough to get away with it in the short run. Yeah. And he has made himself into a good 3-point shooter, particularly in the corner. His corner shooting percentage, I would bet, it rivals 50%. Let alone, so that's their. They become a really enjoyable team.
Yeah, a lot of depth on that Celtics team. So definitely looking to see how far they can go. Got to get through the Brooklyn, the Miami's, affiliates of the East,
and the Milwaukee's.
Don't forget Giannis.
If it started tonight, I would put my money on Milwaukee.
Okay. Well, we've talked football, we've talked hoops, so now let's talk about just the sports media industry as a whole, fellas. Sports media industry seems like it's growing every single day. It's becoming a lot more digital. We're seeing more content being released through social media platforms. You can watch big games like the Super Bowl or big events like the Olympics through your phone. Mr. Ryan, for you, having worked in the sports media industry for such a long time, what are your thoughts on this shift to sort of a digital age within the sports media industry?
Well, as a print guy at heart, I mean, it's eroded any remote importance of print. Okay, I mean, the print is a minor part of the way people absorb their sports now, which is to my great regret. But that's the way it is. No, it's fascinating. I benefit from technology. I like having the instant score. I like streaming something if I have to do it, if I can do it, if I want to do it. Oh, absolutely. You have to go along with the flow. I mean, that's no question. So I mean, it's here to stay. It's only look. And how about this Amazon deal? There's Amazon deals with the NFL on Thursday night, and Al Michaels. I mean, the money that they're throwing around their announcers here. I think I went into the wrong side of the business. But so that's the place to go. But no, it's the way of the world. I mean, I'm not kicking and screaming and fighting it. I try to embrace it and use it to my own benefit as much as possible.
What do you think, Ben?
Yeah, I have to agree. Just hammer in on that streaming. I think. Obviously, streaming has been the big boom in the last, decade or so. I think it's just going to continue to go. I was going to talk about the Amazon deal for, I believe it's the Thursday night games.
Thursday night game.
I think you're going to see more of that with other sports right now, too. I mean, NCAA is streaming all the March Madness games on their own website right now, too. So it's like...
No, that's the new world we're living in, there's no doubt. Now, I still like to think there is a place for print. It's still the way to deliver an experience that, it will be lasting, hopefully, forever, as long as there's human civilization. But it's a tough sell for the younger generation. Sadly, but I just hope that it will keep some spot, some role in the whole enterprise.
Yeah, Never forget the original print. That's always something great. But it should be interesting to see how the sports media industry will continue to evolve through time. But that'll do it for tonight's edition of Cue It Up. Thank you all so much for joining us. For Ben Membrino and Mr. Bob Ryan, I'm Wendell Epps. We'll catch you next time here on Cue It Up.